very happy to have all of you here today. I remember what's the first thing I have to do is to introduce myself, because I didn't do that the last time around, our last event. Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm the Program Manager for SG Fintech Club here. So it's really happy to have you guys here today. So just an inside joke, one of the members during the last event told me, do you think you're a superstar that you don't have to introduce yourself at the event? Yeah, and the only reason why I feel like a superstar is because I can do all these events for you guys, and I'm very excited to be here. So today it's very special because we managed to have a panel discussion together with a CNY luncheon, and that's because we have our event at CNY itself. So I hope you guys will enjoy this whole event with the panel as well as the food that we will have together later on. So just to share a bit about this panel discussion series, we are starting a new one. It's called What's Your Stance? The idea is to really, because SG Fintech Club is a little different from the other corporate events that we hold for SFA, we are really focused on you as individual members instead of just the corporates themselves. So what the topics that we will have in our panel discussion are meant to be more edgy, more forward, something that is more controversial, and then where you can have many different opinions on different things. Even though today the topic of our discussion is on careers themselves, which may not be very controversial, but I'm sure our moderator later on, Nesan, which I'll introduce later, will make it really exciting. So I'm already very eager to see how this panel will pan out later. Yeah, so I'll just introduce Nesan here first. He is the Managing Director, Talent and Organization Lead for Accenture. He has been with Accenture for more than 25 years now, and he has consulted extensively across ASEAN and South African banking industry on a wide range of programs. And I think we're very excited to have him as a moderator as well, because SFA has actually worked with Accenture very extensively. Last year we launched a talent report, and I think Nesan later on will share some statistics from the report, so you get a better idea on what the work that we have done together. And he's also working with, currently working with a large FI, financial institution in Thailand, to really spin off a fintech company. And I think with that, they are actually starting the workforce from zero, and he has done a lot of work on talent itself, thinking of how to upskill the individuals within the organization as well, and also thinking about what are the mindsets and what are the skills that's important for a fintech company, because as you all know, like a large financial institution, there are a lot of legacy systems, there are a lot of people with very different mindsets of what fintechs actually require. So I'm very excited to have them there. Before I invite them up on stage, and where Nesan will also introduce the rest of the speakers, I'll just set a few house rules for today. Please be reminded that it's still COVID season, so we have to be socially distanced. So make sure that you don't mingle with people that are not in your table. And later on, when Nesan may prompt the floor for questions, you just have to raise up your hand. We will have someone to pass the mic over to you. And then lastly, most importantly, for the toilets, if you need the toilets, they're right outside at the end. So the male toilet's on the right side, and the female toilet's on the other side, on the left-hand side. Okay, without further ado, I think you're all very excited to have the panel discussion started. So I'll pass on the time to Nesan, and I'll invite all the speakers up on stage as well. Please take the stage. Thank you.
Okay, good morning everyone. And to everyone, I think it's still wishing you all a very happy Lunar New Year. I think today's the last day of our celebrations, and hopefully everybody has a great one. So, to SFA, thank you very much for inviting me to moderate the session. I'm truly excited and delighted to be here. But I think most importantly is that I have a very esteemed group of panelists who are here with me today to share the stage. So, firstly, I'd like to introduce Patrick. So Patrick Tay is the Assistant Secretary General of NTUC. And Patrick is one of those really passionate guys around talent, skills, and the future workforce. He represents Singapore in a number of different forums. He's no stranger to this group. Patrick was part of our group when we presented our SFA report last year, and we're delighted to have Patrick. Patrick, welcome. The second member of our panel today is Olivia Tom. So Olivia heads the HR Center of Excellence in the Advanced Intelligence Group. She's got more than 15 years of working experience in various areas of HR, and I think she's been very fortunate to see the organization grow from where it was, in an initial startup to something really, really huge. And she's put into place a number of the different talent strategies to be able to get the Advanced Intelligence Group to where it is today. So Olivia, delighted to have you. Welcome. And last but no means least, I'd like to welcome Aneesha Reihana. So Aneesha is the CEO and founder of Honeycomb Web3. I just discovered this morning it's actually 40 days old. And Anisha, she's got a full suite of a really interesting story. And one of the things that really delighted me about Anisha's story is that, she was the boring accountant, and she came at some stage and she reinvented herself to be one of the leaders in Fintech and specifically on blockchain technologies. I'm absolutely delighted to have Anisha here today. So Anisha, welcome. Okay, so as Rachel mentioned, we're going to talk about talent. I think it's okay if I remove my mask. We are socially distant. We're going to talk about the interesting subject of talent. Now, some of you may have read the SFA report that we produced last year. And it was a very interesting study because we interviewed over 100 different fintechs across Singapore to really understand what were some of the talent challenges that we're facing. I think some of the common themes that came out. I think number one, everybody knows there is a talent gap. If we look at the number of fintechs in Singapore, there's probably about over 10,000 individuals working in fintechs in Singapore. And when we interviewed majority of our fintechs, they said in the next 1 to 2 years, they're starting to see their number of employees double. So in the next 2 years, we are expecting to see an additional between 3,000 to 4,000 new jobs created in the sector. And I think we all talk about the fact that there's a number of stem cell graduates that are coming out of universities. There isn't enough to fulfill the demand. And the key question is, what do we do to be able to attract the talent? I think the second thing that I want to highlight from the report is that the fintech skills is not just about the technology skill sets that are required. We saw 4 distinctive profiles of people. We saw, yes, we need the technology wizards, but we also saw a role for operations champions, a role for those that are commercial evangelists, and those that are corporate drivers. So there's 4 distinct profiles that we need in order for a fintech to be able to sustain itself. One of the interesting things that came out of the report as well is we asked the question, why do people join fintechs? And overwhelmingly, most of the respondents said that they joined fintechs because of the leaders of fintechs and those that are in the leadership positions who attract the talent. We asked people, why do people join fintechs? And one of the other reasons is people join for differences in terms of career opportunities and growth. And then we asked the same question, why do people leave fintechs? And here's where the paradox comes in. People leave fintechs because of the lack of career development opportunities and growth. So people join because of growth opportunities, but people also leave because of the lack of opportunities. One other additional piece around the research, we said, we want to understand how are people spending money in terms of training and development. Many of the respondents said that they spend under $1,000 per employee on annual skill development. And this by far is below what the industry norm is in terms of some of the larger financial institutions. So the key question is, how do we attract, how do we develop, and how do we retain our fintech talent? So today's discussion is all about answering some of those specific questions and hearing from our esteemed panelists in terms of some of their specific experiences. So let's start with the first question that I have. We are in a highly competitive market. We see everybody trying to attract the same talent pool. And the key question is, what is that unique employee value proposition that fintechs need to bring to the table? How are you going to actually attract those people who've got the right skills, whether it's technical or behavioral skills? How do you attract them? And what's going to be that unique employee value proposition? So maybe I start, Anisha, maybe yourself first. What are some of your thoughts in terms of how do people come to your organization?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of startups, and especially in this space of Web3s, because that's where we are right now, and talent is a problem across industries, and I would just like to focus on what our experiences are. So what we bring to the table when we're recruiting is love. It's really heavily undervalued, because I was sharing with the panel pre-event. Being in a company is just like a marriage. You spend 12 to 14 hours working, especially now when you work from home. When they're just in front of your screen, it's more important. Love comes from love for your colleagues, wanting them to grow, empowering them to grow, giving them a platform with the tools and the needed resources to grow and contribute to the business. So it's selfless leader. I see myself as a selfless leader. Yes, we want the business to grow, but it's the love that I put across, and I always believe that you attract what you wipe. So before the business can grow, my team has to love themselves first and be happy first. So as a startup, no money, no brand, no logo, and like I mentioned before, we are in the crypto space, blockchain space. Everyone has a crypto wallet holding of 5 million. So, so I heavily believe, and I truly believe in interesting incentives. So yeah, simple answer now.
Love. So, Olivia, is love enough? Because, Advanced Intelligence Group, you started off very small, and now I understand you're in over 30 countries, and grown significantly. Is it more than love? What else special are you doing to really attract people?
Let's try to make the result more predictable. That's what I'm going to say. And thanks for the answer. I really love your answer. So for us, 2,000 people, 13 countries. We did this in the past 6 years, which is quite tremendous result. And now we are also in the talent pool. We are also facing a lot of challenges. It's quite funny because we try to differentiate ourselves. What exactly is the value proposition? How we are going to propose different value to different audience. For us, we are trying to differentiate where are the people coming from, where are the talents coming from. So if I go into detail, you will see that we have people from banking, we have people from retail, we have people from tech company, from multinationals, what they need in their current stage of life. Myself, actually, I come from a multinational environment. I just joined this amazing organization for a couple of months, and my personal experience, why I choose this brand, why I choose to be one of the advancers, is because I feel that the headquarters is here, so we make decisions here. When you talk about the very minimum spend on people's growth and development, we are here to get bigger budget and to use it, invest it in every single employee in our organization. So that's how I'm going to sell the growth opportunity in my current organization. Thank you.
Yeah. So Patrick, Olivia talked about bigger budgets, right? Not everyone has bigger budgets. So, what's some of the things that you've seen in terms of the industry locally in Singapore, in terms of where can we get that additional funding to be able to really build the talent and attract people? Because I'm sure Anisha doesn't have this huge talent budget that she has for training and development.
Yeah, I must say in Singapore we're in a fortunate position. There's a lot of resources dedicated, both nationally and of course industry-wide, to support companies. It's not just the multinationals, we're looking at large local enterprises, SMEs, micro SMEs, even startups. So I think we're starting off in a very fortunate position here in Singapore. I say that because I was just interacting with some international partners across the globe, virtually of course now, and we were just sharing our different experiences in coping with the pandemic, how to adapt to the next normal, and, as we go into the pandemic. So I think the common refrain from many of the jurisdictions as I mentioned or I engage with, there's a big challenge. All of them believe in training, believe in talent management, and are hiring and are growing, but oftentimes they face the obstacle of them having to do it on their own, so it affects their bottom line, literally their bottom line. So, but in Singapore, we're in a fortunate position. I think we have been pretty generous in terms of funding support. I'm seeing this because we have personally interacted with many of our fintechs, those in the blockchain space, and beyond that, in other sectors as well. So I think there's very, very strong support nationally for companies and businesses. At the same time, for individual workers or employees who want to take the extra effort to pick up some new skills, new knowledge, particularly these days when the half-life of skills and the jobs are so short. You really need to be really on the go, on the move. It's like a treadmill. You really need to be constantly learning, or else you will fall off the treadmill. So I think, fortunately, we're starting off with a good start. There's a lot of funding resources. As you all know, budget day is this Friday, and I'm looking forward to continued support and resources for workers and businesses and companies in this space to make sure that we capture all the value and the growth opportunities. Having interacted with many of our industry players, say on the financial sector, Tripartite Committee, I think we are pretty bullish about the fintech blockchain space. So I think there will be resources, as you can see in the last 2 years with SFA, IBF, and MAS, putting a lot of energies, time and resources to make sure this ecosystem works and grows and we can capture value in the longer term.
So Patrick, any early insights in terms of what we can expect in terms of skill development for this group?
More than love to share. I'm personally in this space and lobbying that we can give more support to our startups, micro SMEs, to help them. If they are not already digitized, you'd be surprised. Many of the SMEs, particularly the wholesale retail trade or even F&B, are still pretty much behind. So it's still a journey. Yeah, it's an uneven recovery. Why do you say it's uneven recovery? Is because different companies are at different stages of their digitalization, and digital transformation. So I think those who are already ahead of the curve, they continue to ride the wave. But we're trying to ensure no one is left behind, and support systems. I do expect to see in this year's budget on Friday a lot more support in this space, digitalization, digital transformation, to help particularly the smaller companies to ride this wave of change, and as we adapt to the pandemic and so as the next normal. So I do expect that, and I do expect to see also continued support for the workers. Well, at least I can say for the labour movement. That's why we. One other hat I wear is also the Executive Secretary of the Banking and Financial Services Union. We have met some of you and we have outreach to some of you and touch base. We also want to partner because actually there are resources within the labour movement. We are not for profit, but whenever we get resources to help roll out schemes for workers, we want to partner, particularly the fintechs, because like I said, I'm very, very bullish about the sector. There are going to be a lot of jobs, as shared by Nesan earlier, and we can't wait to help people segue into this space.
Great. Thanks for giving us some sneak preview, Patrick. I think hopefully we'll be able to get some really exciting news in the next coming weeks. I want to pick on a point that you talked about in terms of partnerships. And Anisha, I guess you were a relatively small, early fintech in the blockchain industry, and I'm talking about from a partnership and ecosystem perspective. Do you compete or do you collaborate with the various ecosystem partners? how do you actually work with them to be able to build some of your talent?
So it's definitely collaborate on how we can empower each other, uplift each other in achieving greater adoption. So in the world of Web3, siloed growth is not sufficient. We have to collaborate and see where is our niche, and then we work with our partners, leverage on their expertise and grow together. So for Honeycomb Web3, one of the first things I did was to immediately partner with my long-term associates, my mentor, Professor David Lee, who started off the blockchain program in SUSS. So I went to him and I said, I want to solve this talent problem. I know how you've groomed me. So is there something we can do? So there was GFI and SUSS, so we partnered with them. Then I have another mentor who's a Silicon Valley technopreneur. So because I've never been to that side of the world, so I roped him in for his expertise from the traditional technology side and how we help the emerging markets. Then we wanted to grow APAC. So I brought on that mentor and his ecosystem from Indonesia. So this is one of the first things we did when we started Honeycomb Web3. So it's really interesting when you have no money, then you go the traditional way, like scratch your back, you scratch my back, and see how we all can benefit from each other. And blockchain is all about interoperability, so we always use that back to the business model. How can we connect cross-industry, and how can we grow? So that's how we do it, and it works really well for talent as well.
Great. I love the concept of mentoring, because I think it's about, how do we use different people from our various ecosystems to be able to really help us grow. And I think it's part of saying that, in order to really build talent, it's about collaboration. Olivia, I think you guys have spent a lot of time in terms of building talent. What have been some of your strategies to be able to really build a high-performing workforce?
Back to the keywords, I would also say collaboration, but it's more in the sense to collaborate with every talent in the organization. How we are going to help them to understand the couple of years you're going to spend in the organization. We're helping you to building up your skills. We're helping you to boost your profile. And we don't really expect anyone to stay for their lifetime in the same organization. If you outgrow the speed of growth of the organization, of course, go explore the world. And I think all the organizations, all the startups we are training, we're developing the entire generation of Fintech talents. I do hope that this is something can be be the deep foundation of every single talent strategy. So we create a win-win environment for the entire ecosystem.
I really want to pick on a point around, you talked about the different generations. Now, we all know that we've got a talent crunch in Singapore, and are we looking at the right places? Because, truly, I don't believe that all the talent is just going to come from our universities. Are we really looking in the right places for talent? Maybe, Patrick, I start with you first.
Listen, you're right. I think two key observations in the labor market. One is that moving ahead, we're going to face a very, very tight labor market situation. It's been tight already in the last 2 quarters, according to the labor market stats. It will continue to remain tight. There will be more other measures as usual to keep the workforce very, very tight. So that's one that you need to have presupposes or as a backdrop behind how you handle talent acquisition, talent management, talent retention. So that's one. The other one is one very, very important thing is that in Singapore we have a bit of an aging population as well. So you may not be able to rely on traditional resource, which is fresh graduates, fresh from our institutes of higher learning, from polys, etc. So I think you really need to look at the various sources. Actually, that's two. The third one is actually I'm also anecdotally, my sense that we did some surveys, there's a bit of a structural underemployment as well. Meaning some people have the necessary experience, even global experience, but they may be doing smaller or lesser jobs, or they may be more equipped or more skilled, but we're not realizing their full potential. So increasingly we are seeing that, and I think that's an important delta we need to focus on, simply because we have a tight labor market and we have we have a sort of like a talent crunch at the same time with the great resignation. So everything is all exacting at one go. And everyone's grabbing that same piece of cake. So I think we need to explore options locally. I mean, at the various levels, at the various life stage, because there's a lot of disruption that's happened in the last 2 years, and sort of like inflection plus transformation of the workforce in more ways than one. We see a lot of skills and jobs obsolescence in some traditional industries, and therefore, but then again, there are a lot of growth and new opportunities, which is quite sterling and quite exponential. So I think that the challenge is how we probably have to cast away the plug and play mindset. You're not going to get a perfect candidate, right? Right attitude, right skills, right-minded, right experiences. It's going to be increasingly difficult, particularly all of us chasing for the same group of people. So I think we have to explore, sort of like almost there, but not there yet. But if we can supplement or augment with training, skills development, exposure. Now with everybody being very comfortable in the virtual space, you can actually go across 6 geographies in one day. So I think that kind of dealing and kind of exposure and networks, I think will need to be the new mindsets of employers, particularly startups. We've been talking about it, and I think there will be more support to help startups grow bigger, hopefully become unicorns. But at the same time, also we want our startups to also manage the expectations that you need to find innovative ways. So fortunately or unfortunately, the talent and manpower agenda needs to be one of your key bucket lists if you want to run your company well or you want to grow.
Thanks, Patrick. The 2 interesting things that you talked about. One was around sources of talent, and the other one was around the skills fit. So maybe, Anisha, sources of talent. I mean, are we missing a trick?
Yes, definitely. You want to know my trick?
Please tell. Please tell.
So sources of talent go from, just like how they say, do it in sales, go with the warm leads first. Don't go with the norm. When you look at the normal sources, usually they're filled out, especially when the word fintech gets very sexy. So then, with the leveraging on work from home culture now, go look out for the hidden talent of women returning to work, mothers wanting to return to work, the minorities, or for whatever reason, the disabled who cannot go to a normal 9-to-5 job but now can work from home. With technology, laptop is where work is. If your organization can empower a person, a willing person, to work, if it's not the normal 8 hours, if it's 4 hours or 2 hours, why not? With technology, being in this space where you're digital first, if we can redesign a job that we monitor, skill them, and guide them how to get the job done. Let's start with 2 hours, onboard them, train them. 2 hours train, 2 hours you work. Okay, let's try that for a week. If that's good, let's go 4 hours. If that's good, you feel empowered, you feel the love, you feel that this is your platform, let's try 8 hours. So that's what we've been doing, and once again, no brand, no logo, then we've just got the love, and then I said, we're building an AI on blockchain product, so AI data analyst is really little. Those who know blockchain and AI, that's even more. So there was this group of women, thankfully, because we co-founders, first team, 50% women. Most of us are mothers. So when the word got out, a lot of them wanted to come back. A lot of them wanted to come into this field, and was like, okay, what can you do? Okay, you try 2 hours. And then we do a buddy system. It's like going back to school. So as an organization, if you have only $1,000 of budget, then get a colleague to teach. That colleague is reinforcing his knowledge, can also discover what knowledge he does not have or is lacking, or what error was discovered, and then you've got 2 people growing at the same time with the whole village. 1 teach 2, 2 teach 4, and that's how we grow. So instead of looking at the normal, universities and polytechnics, let's look at fitness groups, PTAs, Tupperware groups. Why not, right? Then just let us know. We'll create an app for you, and then we'll create a digital identity for you. We can give them scoring. That's what we're building. So We're so fortunate that we are a digital first industry. So let's leverage on that, think creatively how we can solve the problem. So being a problem solver by nature, I was like, how can we solve this problem? So this is how we solved it.
Anisha, I really love the point. There's two interesting things that you mentioned. One is around inclusion and diversity, looking at a very diverse workforce. You talked about women, you talked about the disabled. So it's not looking at your traditional Generation Z, Generation Y that one would typically look coming from your top universities with technical degrees, which I love the concept of inclusion and diversity. And you talk about hidden workers, and I really like the idea of trying to find who those hidden workers are. Maybe Olivia, I'll ask you a question. I think it's one of the questions that was sent by the audience prior. Was a specific question around if I'm in my my mid-40s of my career, I've come from the banking industry, is there really a role for me in fintechs?
Always.
And maybe you can share with us, how have you managed to attract those people, and what's the sort of things that you've been able to do to be able to incorporate them into your organization?
Yeah, actually, for an organization like Advanced Group, the average age of our workforce has been increasing in the past couple of years. This is what I can share with everyone. What does this mean? It means that we shift from the beginning stage, where we are building everything from scratch, to the more stable operation mode, where we need people with experience. So for a lot of potential candidates, for a lot of talents, actually a lot of skills are quite transferable. You really need to think about your own value proposition when you apply for certain roles in a desirable organization. Another thing I want to mention is also, it's very important to find your own purpose. For us, we are a group of people with a very clear purpose. We are building this technology to help the entire world to be a better place. And how you play in that, we normally expect our employee to really truly believe in the potential of the organization. That's why we're spending a lot of time training our colleagues to have the growth mindset. Every morning when you wake up, ask yourself, or just do this as a morning mantra. I believe in the potential of myself. I believe in the future of my colleagues. I believe in the future of the business, of the company. If that's who you are, I think you can demonstrate already. You will be all in when you have a position in the organization, and let's build together this beautiful business dream. So that's what we do here. And another point I want to mention, quite interestingly, so this morning I read the commentary in CNN. They're talking about how in Singapore we are going to face the great resignation. From HR end, we actually can feel it, because we always have more than 200, 300 positions open in market in different locations. And we feel how difficult it is today. And in the commentary, the writer put a very valid point, saying that we are going to also think what is the great shift. Take this as the moment to think about, am I really doing something I love? Am I really committed to put my 100% of myself in and deliver 100% of myself? If the current role is not really give you that strong drive, probably think about how you are going to shift it, how you are going to rescale yourselves, and then prepare for the dream role you are now in.
Great, thank you, Olivia. I love the point about passion and purpose of why you exist. So which leads me on to the subject about retention. Now, you don't always have the huge budgets to be able to retain people through rewards. And if we look at all the studies in terms of what makes people stay in organizations, it's not always, people don't always leave organizations because of higher pay. I'm trying to think about what sort of the other motivators to be able to keep people. So, Patrick, maybe from a non-profit perspective.
Yes, I think one key thing is purpose. Yes, it can be the environment, lots of love, and everything else. But I think it's a combination of many other factors. I think there were tons of HR and human capital surveys on what makes people stay or what makes people join the company, and there's a whole list of like 10, 20 items. And but I think increasingly, particularly the Great Resignation, you interview many of them. I know some of them who are resigning without a job. When I ask them, they say, "Oh, I'm still looking for purpose." So the purpose word seems to be coming up quite a bit. So therefore, just a personal tip to our fintechs. I think you need in trying to get the right people, the right team, and the right employee on board. I think it's important to share them the purpose of the company and what you stand for. I think it's getting increasingly more and more important, even not just to attract the younger ones, but also the not so young ones as well. Because at the end of the day, it's, like you rightly pointed out, not just compensation and benefits. That can take you that much. It could be career progression, that can take you that much as well. But at the same time, I think the word purpose is increasingly very, very important. It keeps you going, keeps you, when you wake up in the morning, it sets to ensure that you still stay at your true north, so to speak. So I think purpose is one important thing that keeps people in organizations. That's what we notice anecdotally when I interact with many people, particularly as we are talking to people during this period of time where it's not just the private sector, the public service is also bleeding in the sense that losing a lot of good people to the private sector as well. So it's a great churn happening all across. So I think all of us have grappled with that. But I think bottom line, I feel purpose is important. And for fintechs, don't tell them that you'll be the next unicorn and then you can sell off and go on NASDAQ. I don't think that's go with purpose first. That will connect people and keep people for the longer haul better. Otherwise, after 2 years, they will say, if it's career progression, I'm moving out.
Yeah. And I really like the whole idea of creating that sense of purpose, because that's truly why people, if people understand why they part of an organization, they can see the value, they can see the benefit. There's more likelihood of them actually staying. But Olivia and Anisha, you're both from different sizes of fintechs. Now, Anisha, it's probably easier for you because smaller organization, you can have a lot more face-to-face time. Olivia, with your organization, it's a bit harder to be able to really give that personalized experience. And maybe I'd love to hear from both of you in terms of your different retention strategies. What are you applying in a smaller organization versus a larger organization? Maybe Anisha, you first.
So the outright benefit is that we're smaller, we lean, and I have direct interaction with everyone. And but what does not change regardless of size is empowering. And you really have to do it right and not just say it. It's not a checkbox. Therefore, we have 3 subcommittees at Honeycomb. One is education, one is PR and events, the third one is welfare, the emotional side, the empowering and educating, upskilling side, and of course, once you upskill, you empower, you get them to shine. So these are intrinsic incentives that one shouldn't ignore. When it's beyond the pay package, what else matters? Once again, it's a marriage. When they are with you 12 hours, 14 hours, emotions matter, especially if they're singles. I'm single. I'm a workaholic, so these guys, they don't have a choice. They've got to love me and hate me the same. And I am a lifelong learning junkie, so I tell them study, study, study. So then it has to be creative. It cannot be just, go do this, one 3-hour course. It has to be creative. Then an empowered employee, a fellow member who is a former teacher and a trainer. So I told her, go create the courses or go curate the courses, go partner with other education partners. So one, as an ecosystem partner, they have a Fintech blockchain test pilot group. Number 2, we also achieve our agenda by upskilling our talent. And they feel the sense of purpose, so I assume they do. And because it has to be the right causes, right? And then number 3, it is once they have this empowerment, it's like social media. So we either TikTok them or I put them in a podium. So I told them, it cannot always be me. For now, it's me, but I have team in India, I have team in the Philippines, I have in States, and we will have another team that's growing in Indonesia. I can't be everywhere. So then I said, okay, you guys, you've got to take turns and go on stage. So you've got to be prepared, you've got to learn, you've got to upskill, you've got to eventually find out how blockchain works. And all these starts with love, emotions, welfare. So yesterday when it was Valentine's Day, so I gave a very emotional love letter to everyone. So yeah, that's how we do it. And it's beautiful when you don't have money, really. So you come up with all these creative solutions. So just pretend you don't have money. I think it will be much more interesting to solve your problems. Pretend you don't have a brand, pretend you don't have money, then come to a table, close the door, switch off the Wi-Fi, and then brainstorm. Then tell me how it goes. Okay, yeah.
I think it's brilliant, the art of the possible, when knowing you do not have the funding, actually your right brain starts thinking a lot more creatively around solutions. So Olivia, with probably have a larger budget, larger size organization, and you know, we talked about sharing the love earlier on, but probably a bit harder to do in a larger fintech. You know, what sort of things do you do to be able to really retain people?
I actually want to start from a ping-pong table story, because the part you shared just reminds us that we're still a startup organization, and that's the charm of this kind of organization. Once I was checking, okay, all the tech companies, they have their ping-pong table. Where is our ping-pong table? They tell me, Olivia, we have one in our Beijing office. And what happened to that table? Oh, a couple of folks in this organization come up with some idea on this ping-pong table. So they sold the ping-pong table, installed a couple of desks and chairs, and they started a new business. So still today, this is happening in my organization. We're having a lot of smaller startup ideas. Imagine if you were the person playing ping pong and all of a sudden you get an internal funding to start your business. How come you won't have your purpose? How come you don't find your purpose? But after all, purpose is not something, not a given. So I will say that a lot of people, they don't really have a purpose yet. They're still in the journey to look for their own purpose. And maybe everyone here, I would say maybe if 20% will have a purpose, I think it's already a good result. What we are trying to do internally is we're trying to continue to motivate our colleagues, our friends to find their purpose. And the way we do it, two things. One thing is we constantly search for all these demotivating factors. The things unconsciously or sometimes consciously by the managers in the organization or by whatever employee in the organization, they do this make other people feel that, oh, I might not be welcome here, or this demotivates me. I don't want to keep myself in the organization. That kind of situation we want to stop it. We want to spot immediately in the organization and just fix it. Second thing we're trying to do is we kill all the nonsense in our operation, in our process. So a lot of people join startup because they love the way how easily they can change all these unreasonable things. And this is a very huge demotivating factor if you work in some other more well-established organizations. We also want to make sure that we're creating a job for future, we're creating our business for future. So we kill all the nonsense today. And in order to really be assured that we're on the right track, we also do engagement survey to make sure that we have all these indicators to demonstrate people are well engaged. They have good manager, they have good support, they understand the strategy, they have very good overall wellness, they have good development plan, they have good learning plan. So everything together, that's our effort to drive this journey of purpose funding.
Great, thanks. I think it's a really good point just in terms of reiterating the points around purpose. And I like your comment around wellness, because I think I think we've seen in the last 2 years, and it also came up in our survey, that many fintechs were not necessarily focusing on the employee wellness aspect. And I think that's an important aspect to really focus on. I would love to take some questions from the audience, and I'm sure all of you have got some questions in mind. So perhaps if you just want to raise your hand, we'll either bring a mic to you, or we can we'll be small enough to be able to voice your question. So any Any immediate questions? Sure. Hi, and please state your name, where you're from, and.
Sure. So my name is Jiahao. I'm from Squad. So we. So essentially, we are a HR tech platform that allows companies to hire anyone from anywhere, right? So the question I have is actually regarding the balance, right? We talked about the sources of talent, and the focus of the Singapore government has always been, of course, hiring Singaporeans. So, but for startups or for companies, the more immediate need would be, for example, hiring a tech team in Indonesia. So where do we find the balance in that, right? Like in which scenario do we try and hire Singaporeans, and how are we going to move forward with remote working now being normalized because of COVID? Yeah.
If I may take that.
Great question. Please go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, definitely you're right. I think the strengthening and developing the Singaporean core is definitely going to be the government's agenda, even in the labour movement's agenda, core at all levels. But maybe I would just like to highlight 2 points. Firstly, last year I co-chaired NTUC plus Singapore National Employers Federation PME task force. So we interviewed and surveyed far and wide about 10,000 local professionals, managers, executives at all levels of hierarchy, in all industries. And the common refrain is well similar to what you just shared. Where do we find the talent? Why we really need a talent? So one of the recommendations in that 9 recommendations that we fleshed out was to maybe, in terms of the employment pass system as well as the work pass system, come up with sort of like a point system of sorts, to see whether if there's a real shortage, real deep need for that particular skill or expertise, how can we do that so that it can help micro SME startups to really grow. So one of the recommendations in there, it was a bipartite recommendation, was to look at this, and therefore I would steal the thunder. Look out for Friday budget and Committee of Supply and Ministry of Power. This one. The other one is increasingly I'm seeing a lot of financial institutions, including tech companies, having to, I would say offshore, but maybe because also fueled and accelerated by what's happened in the last 2 years to really import talent and their services and products, virtually, or should I say remotely. I think that's I won't mention which bank or which financial institution, but many of them are already on that journey, basing it somewhere else, and maybe just keep the final codes and the cyber settings back and do it back here locally. But increasingly, a lot of companies and businesses, including fintechs, are doing that. I'll be very surprised if they're not already doing that. Yeah, actually. So that's what another mode. In fact, it's actually cheaper, better, faster for the company as well. Not having to lose sleep over navigating somebody's employment rules and labor regulations, and having to still be able to achieve your business outcomes and objectives. So I think this is a dual-pronged thing that we're looking at. So yeah, look out for budget and Committee of Supply for manpower.
Yeah, and I think we heard from Anisha. She's got teams in India, Philippines, Singapore, and the US. So again, it's a multi, it's a global workforce, but local in roots in Singapore. And I think that the trick is to figure out what are those niche skill sets that you can't find in Singapore. It's really hard to build the talent, because at the end of the day, we do want to make sure that our Singapore talent is uplifted to a certain level of capability, right? And I originally come from South Africa, and one of the things that we made sure that we did was we applied the concept of affirmative action, which was really about building local skills and local talent, but not ignoring that actually foreign talent does bring about, they can contribute towards the economy, and they actually do help you uplift their skills, but it's about creating the right balance. I don't think it's an either or, it's an and, but recognizing that we want local firms to also build talent. It's not necessarily just about finding skills all over the world and just a blanket shop that sits here, or a fake startup just in name and in paper that sits in Singapore.
Just in case, some may get the wrong message, but I think we continue to stay open. We have no choice. I mean, it's a very, very delicate balance. The one-third, two-third rule, or so I say one-third foreign manpower, two-third local manpower. I think that's something which has been the constant message out there. We try to achieve that balance. It's not easy, particularly needs a serious relook as we move into new growth sectors, new growth industries. We know which sectors are the ones growing. Of course, modern services is one of those that are really powering the entire economy, not just the last 10 years, but the last 2 years as well. So there will be, we'll try to rebalance that and to really see where the needs are, and for you to be able to justify those needs, and so that you can partner you to help you to grow. I think that's the imperative that we're looking at. Yeah.
Okay, I'd love to take some more questions from the audience.
Okay, my name is Tarun and I work for a company called Fintech. Okay, so I just want to move a little bit topic. We all know that there's a talent. I want to move the topic towards more on the recruiting process and the way companies are sourcing that talent. Because it's my personal experience, and I think most of us will have, and it happens in both in these smaller companies and in the bigger companies. Okay, because the way industry has evolved, right? Everybody, you get a job description that I need a certain talent, and when the person is going for a hiring and looking for a talent, they just go with that box or that mindset. And I don't know how organizations can improve in that process, because all we're talking about love, we're talking about empowerment, we're talking about hidden talent, right? Because there will be people who have this good caliber, okay, but they just quickly get rejected because they would have not fit in that box of requirements. And so how do you solve that problem? Or do you think that's a problem, genuinely a problem, or it's not a problem? I'd just like to hear your views.
Great, Tarun, let's address that. And Patrick, you alluded to in the beginning, earlier on, you mentioned something about, sometimes we're looking for the perfect fit of skills. So maybe I'll start with you first.
Yeah, so exactly. So I think the biggest problem that we'll face, or Singapore will face in the next 5-10 years is, as I alluded to earlier, the structural unemployment problem, which also means there's a mismatch of skills, expectations, etc. So this mismatch is unfortunately still there. I think it will continue to be there, simply because it's not easy to get a perfect match.
Correct.
Yeah, it's going to be impossible, particularly the next normal, to get a perfect match, whether in whatever jurisdictions you're in. So I think the key is to find the best match, and then from there make it perfect through various interventions. I think we are fortunate here, as I alluded to earlier. We have a lot of resources, support schemes, particularly for fintech startups and SMEs. I think there's a plethora of schemes. Even I get confused sometimes because there's a buffet of it. Yeah, so I think the key is redesigning of jobs sometimes, because from one perspective it could be redesigning of jobs. The other perspective is to once they redesign, but reset or rejuvenate or refresh the skills and talents to meet the requirements of your particular job. And so I think you can't find the perfect plug and play. I can assure you will never find a perfect plug and play moving forward. You will just, simply because of the sheer short half-life of skills and jobs. So I think the key is how you stay nimble, adaptable, fluid, and of course on-the-go learning training, which is already very generously supported and funded across the entire ecosystem. So I think you can set your mind to tapping on some of these networks, some of these fundings, and as well as some of these collaboration opportunities, which are actually interestingly in the fintech. I'm quite happy to see Singapore Fintech Association partnering very, very closely with the labour movement, others including MAS and IBM. I think there's lots of support across the entire space, even the IHLs. Earlier to Prof. David Lee, SUSS. I think the IHLs are also very into this and very supportive, even in NUS School Computing, etc. So I think the stars are aligned. It's just how to maximize and capitalize on the opportunities.
Thanks, Patrick. So, Anisha, to Tarun's point, do you still use job descriptions to hire people?
No. As much as possible, we, based on time constraint, that's how it, of course, we have a checklist of, let me rephrase that. If it's a technical one, then yes, of course, a job description. My business answer, I think you need a business answer, very blunt, change the recruiter. When my previous portfolio, when we were upsizing, and I needed really go-getters and problem solvers, so we had this recruiter. She could really read between the lines. Once again, blockchain is, I tell you, it's really brutal. Even at SUSS, no textbooks. Have you seen a Singapore university with no textbooks? The dean was teaching us. So maybe that's where I got my guts, and whichever portfolio I lead on after that. So when we are recruiting, and when they give me a JD, when the team comes up and give me a JD, my first thing is this guy willing to learn? So get a recruiter who can read between the lines, who can go and really go and do a lot of investigation, go through their social media, really go and spy on their social media, TikTok, and see what type of person they are. Two matrix, skill and will. If the skill is lesser, which is most often our case in our industry, then let's look at the will matrix. Are they willing to learn? How much are they willing to learn? How much are they willing to fail? And you need somebody with a third eye to pick that up. So if you are looking for a career change in fintech, blockchain, then open your social media profiles. Go and do the most cheesiest TikToks. I mean, if you want to be visible, you want to be caught, you've got to be visible. You've got to really sell yourself as a resource as well. And as a traditional recruiter, I think you've also got to change yourself. If the skill set is not there, then what else can you look for? Matrix, skill and will. Then look at the will. Then you need to empower them. Make sure your organization is willing to empower them with a skill set. Because there's no point in putting down the dollar and recruiting them, then, oh no, you go and do your own course. Where? Oh, find yourself. Right now. So I guess that's my business answer to you. Yeah.
I love the concept because initially, you can train people on the technical skills, you can train them on knowledge areas, but you can't train them to have the right behaviors and the right attitude. So if people come in with the right learning attitude, you can do wonders with them. I have this maybe that's one final question from the audience.
Okay, I have a question. Christopher here from Greentrees. We have 2 programs, basically in the fintech serving the banks. So my question is very simple. You see, we take candidates from PCP. Okay, so after 1 year, right? You see, after they are trained, they finished whatever they need, right? And then we have competitors. They come in and offer double the salary. So I want to know what is your opinion, right? So I am a dilemma, right? Yeah, okay. You say, yeah, it's very wonderful working here. Thank you for all the training. But I say, if someone double my salary, it's too tempting, right? And I asked me, boss, can you double my salary? So of course I have problem, right? If I double his salary, then I'm going to do with the rest of the staff, right? So I really want to know the opinion from you. What should you do with this? And the other area is that how do you actually recruit? No, skill we can measure easily, but attitude is very difficult, right? It's very difficult to know. And some people really that like I feel PCP, some are good, some drop off. So how do you know that? How do you actually assess, right? Sometimes people after 2 months they say cannot. Chris, I cannot tahan. I just want to go back to what I do always. So I want to know your opinion. How do you assess it? So 2 questions on this. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Patrick,
I just want to jump into this because brother here is talking about professional conversion program, as well as actually ongoing now there's a jobs growth incentive where you get a sort of like a wage subvention when you hire people particularly during this period. Of course, there's an SG-led traditions and a whole plethora of these various schemes which are supposedly coming to an end next month. But well, like I said, watch out for budget day 2, which is on Friday. Yeah, because I'm lobbying that space and saying that can we do it on a more permanent basis. But actually, if you allude to that, that's actually one of the objectives of the PCP and the traineeships and all the jobs growth incentive. If you notice, most of these programs has been 6 months, 9 months to maximum about a year. is actually government providing some funding for you to, in a way, size up your employee. And for the employee to size up whether you're a good employer and whether he or she really has the knack, the aptitude or the attitude for it. So I thought it's actually a good look through period of sorts for 6 months to a year. We don't expect everyone to jump on the bandwagon, and so actually it's a good opportunity for you to display yourself as the employee which showers lots of love, and we're able to keep them, and they feel that they are connected to you, they want to stay for a long haul. At the same time also for you to size up the employee as well. If they drop off after 2 months, I mean, it speaks for itself. So it's a good opportunity. There's, like I said, it's very, very generous funding, almost like 40% of salary for a whole year. In some to I know some of you are in TIFIT with IBF, and that's even more generous. So I think these are programs which are to help employers like some of you to also suss out your employee and the prospective employee, whether you want them for the longer term. If they drop out of you for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, after a year, say I'm jumping ship for another company that pays me double, all I can say is it's either the employee or employer. Something's not. It's sort of a mismatch of expectations.
Yeah.
So how do we create a perfect match? Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Patrick. Guys, I can't believe that the hour has gone so quickly. But in wrapping up, I'd love each of our panelists to share with the audience at least one practical idea that you have for all our fintechs out there. Things that you can either do to either attract, develop, or retain staff. What would be your one magical tip, Anisha?
Problem is one, solution is 10. So you find the most optimal solution and keep optimizing.
Great. Olivia?
Fund the unique value of the organization, also fund the unique value of yourself. Try to make a perfect match there. The connection will be very strong.
That connection, great.
Yeah, for me, work closely with Singapore Fintech Association, as well as the labour movement in our banking and financial services. Simply because we have access and we have various spheres of influence and we have network, and we are doing it really not for profit. Yeah, we are here to help you to make sure you grow, and we are not here to scringe over the extra crowd. We are wanting you to be, you grow big and bigger, because at the end of the day, bottom line, the industry is healthier, big, and it's growing, and it's a growing concern. At the same time, the workers on the ground will be impacted, and there will be new jobs created. So partner with us. We are more than happy to signal and be the compass to help you to see where to tap and where to do redesign and where to ensure you hire, keep, and retain the right people.
Right. Thanks, Patrick. I think over the course of the last hour, I've really heard some really great gems from our panelists. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. Some of my takeaways were, I loved Anisha's opening statement around, we bring love to our organization and to our people. I like the concept of partnerships. We cannot succeed as fintechs alone. We are a part of an ecosystem, and we need to work with the relevant partners. It's all about collaboration. We can't do this in isolation. I love the concept of using mentors to be able to build skills and using that network. I like the idea of we need to find that other generation of employees that we wouldn't traditionally be looking out for. So we call them the hidden workers, looking for talent beyond just those that are coming out of universities or the graduates, but we're looking for women with children, we're looking for the disabled, etc. So using the inclusion and diversity as part of the strategy to be able to find the hidden workers. We talked a lot about the types of skills that one would hire, and it's not always a perfect fit. So whether you choose it's 80%, 80-20, or whatever the percentage is for your organization, but thinking about it's a balance between the technical skills as well as the behavioral skills. We talked a lot about clear purpose, having a clear purpose in terms of why you exist and what you bring to, what the organization brings to the table, and making sure that you can actually drive that throughout the organization. We talked a little bit about empowering workers, and we talked about intrinsic motivation. So looking at beyond rewards and incentives, and looking at other ways in which you can actually motivate employees to be able to stay with you. We talked about it's a marriage. When people join your fintech, it's a marriage. And in a marriage, there is no back door, right? So you get into the door and we close it, and we're there for life, hopefully. And we also talked about, in fintechs, it's about making sure that when you have experienced hires, you don't always have the long bureaucratic processes. So kill some of the processes that may inhibit growth. We also talked about making sure that you drive through levels of engagement, so proactively understanding what the engagement levels are, and thinking about things such as employee wellness in terms of your overall value proposition. We started to talk about where do you find the talent, and it's not just in the borders of Singapore, but thinking about where do you find pockets of skills throughout the globe, because we are in a very different type of workforce where we can get skills from all over the world. And it's about how do you make sure that you have the right balance between local talent and the foreign talent. And we talked about some of the ways in which you can improve the recruitment process. And if your recruiters are looking for the traditional way of recruiting from job descriptions, you probably have to kill the recruiter and find alternative ways. Ladies and gentlemen, to our panel, thank you very much for joining me today. And to our audience, thank you for your questions that came through. It's been an absolute delight to be part of today's discussion. Hopefully you've all got something away from today's session. Ideas, tips to be able to take back to your organizations in terms of this big topic around talent. I always say, we can build the best of technology solutions. However, it's the people that make it happen. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your participation, and I'm handing over back to Rachel. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you so much, our panelists, for today. I think it was a really exciting session, and I know some of you may have further questions. I mean, we have a lunch going on. If you have the opportunity to, please